Bonjour mes amis, je m'appelle David Wojcik. Je pose la question aujourd'hui en français seulement. And for those of you who do speak French, you're probably cringing at my French today. Good morning, everyone. My name's David Wojcik. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at the Mississauga Board of Trade. Some of you may know me as the former CEO, which Trevor McPherson took over on August the 9th. So great to be working with Trevor in the transition time. This is my final from the corner office. I will be fully retiring on December the 31st. So I want to thank everyone who's been following along with this series from Growth and Power all the way through from the corner office through the fireside chats. Today, we are in conversation with Olivier Lemire, President of Keurig Dr. Pepper Canada. This is going to be a great treat for everyone who enjoy Keurig products and Dr. Pepper products. I know that I have over the years. Before starting today's event, I would like to quickly review the virtual event protocols for this call. All attendees will remain on mute as we are recording this event. A Q&A session will occur all the way through our fireside chat. So if you have a question that you would like Olivier to answer, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to enter the question. The questions are only visible to MBOT staff and the panelists, and MBOT staff will review all the questions that are asked, and we will do our very best to get as many answered as possible. Again, it's an interactive session, so please ask the questions at any time during the conversation. I'd like to thank our From the Corner Office sponsors today, Kaiser Mason Ball and Gallagher Insurance, for their continued support of the C-Level event. Now, to officially introduce our guest speaker and to say a few words, I would like to welcome Amy Delisle, the managing partner with Kaiser Mason Ball. Amy?
Thanks, David. I'm excited to be here first just to say hello from Kaiser Mason Ball, KMB Law, and also to introduce Olivier. So Olivier has a long and successful track record since joining Keurig Dr. Pepper Canada as Director of Sales in 2011. Prior to being appointed as president in October of 2021, he held key leadership positions at the company, including human resources, supply chain, commercial strategy, and partner brands. A collaborative and team-oriented leader, his enthusiasm and passion for the company are contagious. Oliver has a clear vision to continue to position KDP Canada as the country's modern beverage leader, not only by leveraging its strong and diverse portfolio of brands, but also by fostering an organizational culture focused on development, employee wellness, diversity and inclusion, sustainability, which is truly at the heart of the company's efforts. Olivier is a humble but seasoned manager who has been able to deliver successful results at all levels since joining KDP Canada. His extensive experience is a major asset, particularly in terms of understanding the company's offer and internal mechanisms. With keen understanding of the industry, he's been able to capitalize on opportunities that face KDP Canada's challenges. Prior to joining Keurig Dr. Pepper Canada, Olivier worked for Canadian retail industry leaders such as Procter & Gamble and Nike. He has held key roles at commercial operations and sales management that allowed him to develop the qualities necessary to contribute to the growth of Keurig Dr. Pepper Canada. After studying kinesiology and having worked in professional sports, Olivier completed his MBA. On a personal level, he is a family man with an incredible love for sports and a passion that he was able to pass on to his 3 children. Please welcome me in, please join me in welcoming Olivier.
Well, thanks, Amy, for the introduction for Olivier. A keen sports individual, so we'll get into sports a little later in our conversation. But first of all, Olivier, I noticed in your introduction, one of the companies that you were part of is Nike. Nike's a footwear company. Keurig Dr. Pepper in the consumer goods space, but in the food space. So how do you make that transition from footwear over to food products, or are there just transferable skills and it really doesn't matter what the product is? It's all about the management.
Oh, David, great question. By the way, thank you for having me. Amy, thanks for the great introduction. Super happy to be with all of you virtually this morning. It's a great question, David. Actually, what I realized at Nike, they had 2 profound priorities, which were let's take care of the brand, but even more importantly, let's take care of the people. So they've always taken care of their employees, but the athletes and the community that they do business in. And this is really much the same priorities that we do here have at Keurig Dr. Pepper Canada, right? We have a set of very strong brands that we own ourselves. We've got brands that are licensed that we take care as if they were our own. And ultimately, we take care of the people that are within the company, but also within the communities, either locally and even with our coffee growing communities in country of origin. So yes, transferable skills, taking care of brands, reaching consumers, different industry, but at the core, very similar kind of set of priorities overall.
Olivier, I know that, if you want to give out the secret formula for Dr. Pepper, we're always happy to listen to it. But what is it about Dr. Pepper that just, because it's not a root beer, it's not a cola, it's kind of in a class all of its own. What was Dr. Pepper one of those drinks like other drinks where somebody was trying to make one thing and they stumbled on this formula and they came up with something else? What's the history behind Dr. Pepper?
No, exactly. I think it's a long history brand, and you're absolutely right. It's someone that had a desire for great taste and a treat. And unfortunately, David, once they found the recipe, they probably locked it in a vault, and therefore nobody has access to it anymore. But consumer can enjoy it every day. It's as you know, a very strong brand for our portfolio in the U.S. primarily, where it's one of the top carbonated soft drink brands, and one where we are investing in here in Canada, and we're seeing significant growth. We've got a set of consumers that love it very much, and now our strategy is to make sure we get it out there and put it in more homes, and consumers have a chance to try it even more here in Canada. So a great trademark we're really proud of, and you'll see more and more of Dr. Pepper here in Canada in the years to come.
Olivia, let's talk about you and your pathway to the top spot at Keurig Dr. Pepper. When you were a little boy, when you started thinking about your career, was that the goal? Did you say to your mom and dad, "Mom, Dad, one day I am going to run Dr. Pepper"? Did that come out of your mouth?
Not at all, David. Let me be honest. My goal was to be on the blue line of the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, that didn't work out, and I'm sure I was no different than many kids growing up playing hockey. It led me to great opportunities. I had a chance to play on scholarships in the U.S. and play for universities here, but that was to the extent of it. So my parents were always very clear: you're going to play hockey as long as you can reconcile with your academics, and that was something that they were very animate about, and rightly so. So I thank them today for that decision, especially when I look at the Montreal Canadiens, the way they play. I probably don't want to be on their blue line right now.
Well, they could use your help. They could sure use your help. That's for sure.
So no, I mean, I grew up again, probably wanting more to be a professional athlete, and then quickly realized that wasn't going to be for me. I was probably not going to be selected there. So I took a different course, and that's where I went into human kinetics, University of Ottawa. I was very attracted into potentially medical school. So I was interested in medical school. Unfortunately, medical school was not as interested about me. So I basically did different courses. And then honestly, through my career, I held different roles into more management, leadership, leading others, building, having the sense of entrepreneur. And therefore, I wanted to make sure I was also grounded in more of academics. So that's where I decided to do my MBA. And then basically life takes care of you. I joined P&G, and here I am today, still in the business world with Keurig Dr. Pepper after a 20-year path in the CPG world.
Well, it sounds like you had a more linear path to the top than I did. I mean, for years, people asked me when I was 20, 30, 40, 50, they asked me, what is it you want to do when you grow up? And I often thought, and I've talked with other CEOs about this, that it's a culmination of the experience, even if it's not a linear path. It's a culmination of all these experiences that prepare you for that big job. Does that hold true in your path as well? That all the experiences that you, even though they might not have been a linear path to Dr. Pepper, that those experiences help you in your job today?
No, absolutely. And something when I look back and even look ahead, I value very much, David. And we call it kind of the rock climbing path here at KDP, something that we put a lot of emphasis on. We want to have people live different experience, look at the business from different angles. And to give you an example, I recall when I joined Keurig at the time, was really the coffee company and the coffee system company. So at a different scale at the time, 10 years ago when I joined. And I was interested in different things, but I had always been more in the customer business development side of the businesses, both at Procter & Gamble and Nike, and was curious to explore different functions within the organization. I remember going to my manager at the time and saying, hey, I've seen this conference of a couple days on supply chain. I'd be more than interested to attend and gain more knowledge there. And he said, okay, give me the weekend. I'll look at it. I'll get back to you next week. And they came back saying, we think we have a better idea. Instead of going to that conference, you're going to step into our leadership position to lead our supply chain team. So I learned by fire, but and it's been the same way when I joined in HR and then back in commercial strategy. So it allowed me to obviously get out of my comfort zone, develop and rely on your strength, but surround yourself with very strong people, very capable folks. So I think these are attributes that stick with you no matter what situation you face down the road in your different roles. So even though it may sound linear, I did different things in probably not the right or typical order of things, which I'm very grateful of today.
Well, you found your path, which we're all grateful for. Olivier, I'm thinking as you're talking about the different things that you, different positions that you held, and the CEOs that I talked to, and even when I took over the CEO spot at the Board of Trade, there were days where I felt like it was a runaway locomotive and I was hanging on to the caboose, by my fingertips. When you first take over, a lot of CEOs are in senior management positions. They get to a point at some time when they say, I'm over my head here. I really don't know how I'm going to survive this. Do you think that that's a typical reaction, at least in the early stages? I mean, once you get comfortable, of course, you end up doing the job as if it's second nature to you. But in those initial days, did you have those feelings as well?
No, absolutely. And David, I'm nowhere near that phase of coasting here and knowing everything that's coming at me. Let's be honest. But the reality, I'm very lucky. I've got our former president, Stefan, that's still around, that's still there for counsel and guidance. I've been working with Stefan very closely over the last, 5 years. So this transition is helping, I would say, to transition within that position, that role, and also making sure that I'm reminding myself what are the key priorities. I think that the danger is wanting to do a lot in very little time. And ultimately, our role is to make sure that we provide clear directions, make sure we've got the right enablers for the organization to succeed in what we've determined would be the key performance indicators. So it's really a question of making sure we find the right pace. But you're absolutely right. It's something that you need to reflect on regularly, right? And make sure you're having the right pace and you don't feel overwhelmed. Because that's the last thing you would want to be in, for sure.
Now, this is an interesting situation. So you had Stefan, you were working with him, and he's still there for you to call on as you're the president. So we have a similar situation at the Board of Trade. Trevor McPherson took over on August the 9th, and I'm here until the end of December to be really a resource for him. What's your advice to Trevor in dealing with the former CEO? Is it deference? Do you suggest to Trevor, listen, you do everything that David says, and things like, what's your best piece of advice for Trevor, and what's your best piece of advice for me as the retiring CEO?
Well, listen, the only thing I can probably relate to is the situation that we've established with Stefan, and he wanted me to get right, and so he did remove himself, I would say, from the daily operations of the business. So everything that pertains to managing the business on a daily basis, managing the team on a daily basis, that I do, but he's there as a sounding board, right? And that's really what I value most, is to be able to think out loud on things that I'm uncertain about. And by the way, what's reassuring in some cases is that what I'm uncertain about and questions I may have, he has the same. So it's the two of us kind of thinking those things through, because there's very little black and white situation, right? We operate within the gray. Things are, to your point, going fast. There are things we control, there are things we don't control. So the role he's been playing is being there and available. Me using him again as a soundboard and board, and just thinking out loud, and that's been very, very helpful. The other thing is more of a steering, right? Have you thought about this? Have you been able to connect with these folks? What about this? So I'm seeing his support a lot more behind the questions he asked versus the answer he provides. And that is very helpful, right? Because I think it forces me, and rightly so, to come up with what feels right, having considered hopefully as many elements as possible to inform the proper decision making.
Well, one of the reasons we started the From the Corner Office series is because it's lonely in that corner office. I mean, you're fortunate that you have Stefan to pick up the phone and uses that sounding board, because there's certain things that come up on a day-to-day basis that you just can't talk to anybody else about. And so we started this series for that specific purpose, that other CEOs would know that they're not alone when they're feeling unsure or need that the mentorship. One of the things that you just mentioned is the uncertainty of what's coming at us, and one of the things that always comes up in the conversation with CEOs, especially the ones that are involved in any kind of manufacturing or supply chain, is the disruption of the supply chain globally right now. How has the disruption affected Keurig Dr. Pepper, and what's going through your mind as you think about the current situation, and how to work in the future so that you don't have those same supply chain disruptions, even though it might not be a pandemic. It could be a global weather like we're experiencing in BC right now, all kinds of catastrophes. So what's going through your mind currently, and what are you thinking about for the future?
Well, David, it's a very good question, and something we can probably talk about for the remaining 40 minutes, to be honest, in the sense of, listen, the last couple of years, and it's been amplified, I would say, over the last 18 months, has been a challenge on that front, right? And I think we're all living it in some way, shape, or form in our either professional life or personal lives. But the reality right now is that we have global constraints, and to your point, we have local, right? We have, in some cases, we've got things coming through the Port of Vancouver that currently we can't get through British Columbia. And actually, my focus right now is not even on the goods; it's on the people themselves, and how they're doing, and what help and support we can provide. That's where kind of our efforts are directed at this point of crisis, and then we'll make sure we get the goods across. But it has been disrupted, and for us, I would say on many fronts, we import, as you know, coffee, so green coffee, and this has been under significant disruption. Not having the right coffee in the right place at the right moment is a struggle of today's environment, because of transportation, because of crops, because of climate change. I mean, there's many things that plays in the overall supply disruption. I think what it does for us is we are very lucky, and that's where we recognize the investment we've done in creating strategic partnerships, both from our co-manufacturer, let's say in Asia, for our Keurig systems, but also with our transportation companies and our warehousing companies. So this is now paying off, right? We're able to have strategic conversations. We're able to talk on a regular basis with experts within their fields, and try to maneuver as best as we can through something that's impacting, I mean, every organization around the globe. So I think building strong and strategic and long-term partnership pays off in moments like what we're living now, right? There's a trust factor that's established, and we know we're all doing the right things given the means that we have. Now, if we look at the future, hopefully things obviously get back to normal from an overall transportation and supply and containers. But what we're probably most likely still looking at a 12-month ahead disruption before it gets back. So for some, it may feel that we're getting closer, but for others running businesses on a daily basis, it's quite a long time ahead, right? So our forecasting, our planning needed to be adjusted. Lead time, we needed to change the ways of planning our business, both from a raw material and finished goods. So it's forcing us to review certain things and maybe take different strategy from an inventory management and so on. So what I'm learning through this is obviously it's anybody that can tell you that they can forecast with 100% accuracy is most likely wrong, or please call us. We have plenty of room for you, but it's an exercise on a daily basis trying to reconcile and correlate multiple factors into one.
When we think about the things that you've had to deal with now, I mean, you're a national brand, you're part of a global organization. First the pandemic, then supply chain disruption, now fires and now floods in BC. How do you deal with this personally to keep your sanity? I mean, other than making sure that your office is on the first floor, so when you jump out the window, you don't hurt yourself too badly. How do you deal with that personally?
Well, listen, ultimately, you need to be, I think, as physically and mentally fit as you can be to kind of face these situations. But the reality, we're approaching it here as a great business challenge, and we're putting our minds together, and we're trying to take it personal, but depersonalize the issue, right? In the sense of, hey, we're all bringing our best foot forward, our best efforts. We need to stay mentally and physically healthy in order to face those challenges. And honestly, some of them are not going away, right? There are certain things that we don't know about that may hit us in 3 or 4 or 5 months from now. We're not out completely of the pandemic. We're starting to hear wave 5 in certain areas and around the globe. So what does that mean for Canada? Let's wait and see. But I think we got to be armed and know that there are situations that are going to be coming at us. But from a personal basis, I would say, you know what, you said it. I think Amy said it in the introduction. I do spend a lot of time with the kids at sports, and it feels to me that at least when they're on the court or when they're on the ice, I've got this moment of myself not thinking about some of these things, and I think it's healthy, right? So, and it's interesting because we did put a lot of efforts here at Keurig, Dr. Pepper Canada, over the last 18 months around our health and well-being agenda. Because I mean, we're talking about me, but I'm very also focused on all of our people here at the organization. So we've rolled out physical health challenges and programs and tools, and same for mental health, right? It's been greatly documented, but something that we need to be focusing on, I think, across all organizations, not take lightly, so people can remain as healthy as possible and fit to face those different business challenges.
Well, you're absolutely right. Children and spouses certainly have a way to ground you. When you walk through the door, they don't greet you like the president and CEO of Keurig Dr. Pepper. They greet you like dad and husband. And by the way, we got to get to the arena. We got to do this. We got to have dinner. It certainly is a wonderful, wonderful distraction from the day to day. A question from our audience. You talked about your path and your mentors along the way, and how Stefan has assisted you currently. What do you and your company do to help your employees in their own personal development and growth?
It's critical, and probably one of the top value we have. It's around growth, and we may think it's around business growth, but it's actually around our people, personal and professional growth. So different things we've put in place. First, obviously, our people have a annual development plan that we review with them on a quarterly basis. So I would say hopefully very standard talent practices. But more importantly, we've started to roll out these mentorship programs where we can assign younger talent coming into the organization, wanting to found their boundaries with someone that can provide perspective, counsel, and so on. So we are formalizing these programs, I would say, across the organization. And also we've taken a lot of measures, I would say, over the last year, because our people had to, I mean, for some, we needed to keep them safe, the ones working in our manufacturing facility, obviously, and we took a lot of pride in doing that properly, but also supporting the employees that we asked to work from home. And you can only imagine, I mean, joining an organization remotely, you get your computer through the mail, you log in, you've got zero informal, everything is formal through a screen. So we had a lot of trainings and discussions with the managers to make sure that they were finding new ways to connect with their people, have the right conversation, make sure they had one-on-one discussion. And I think it goes to the development of our people. And then ultimately, we've got a great learning and development agenda where I would say offers great flexibility for our folks to take different courses in different aspects of the business and even productivity tools to help them in their personal development and efficiency. But I mean, we said it earlier about my personal development, and it's something we're implementing across the board. We believe 70% of the learning will be done on the job. So we've created these programs where people can step into different roles in different functions in the organization. And that's where we get the best comments around supporting them in their personal and professional development. And it's not only moving people around, it's moving people around with a purpose, with a specific need. We articulate that, the coaches, the managers, they know. And ultimately, we're building a much stronger workforce and a much more engaged workforce, which ultimately is critical, right? You can have great talent if they're disengaged. You're definitely coming short and not optimizing the people working in the business.
Olivier, when you're talking about talent and this development piece, right now we have a shortage of talent at all levels in Canada. We're 2 years behind on our immigration situation. Of course, there's all kinds of things that have stunted the growth of talent organically here in Canada. So what are you thinking about strategically in order to attract that great talent and retain the great talent that you already have?
Well, since it's a great question, I would say obviously multiple elements and in no specific orders here, David. But the first thing is you obviously need to be connected with your total compensation, including the benefits and the total rewards, to make sure that you're still competitive and able to attract talent and retain talent. However, for me, that's kind of the foundation and the base, but really that's not what's going to drive people to either ultimately join, because this could be matched, right? It could be matched by others. And I think what the difference makers are, either on retention and attraction, which are two critical, is about your employee value proposition. Are you able to define clearly what is it and why would you be joining here, Keurig Dr. Pepper Canada, right? What is it about your development plan? How do we manage talent internally that you refer to? What are the set of values and core values that you will see and you will experience, you will thrive in? I think that's critical. And ultimately, what's our mission? And where we're heading now, and we're seeing more and more make a difference, is this concept of purpose. So for many, many years, we've talked to our people and people that wanted to join the organization. Hey, here's what we want to do and how we're going to do it. And more, we're shifting the dialogue around why. And the why becomes a very personal discussion. And we see a very high correlation and highly engaged employee that have a very strong sense of purpose and contribution to the business. And we're making it very clear. And sometimes, and we don't leave it in the air. We have sit down meetings with the individual. We talk about the overall, let's say, mission of the organization, our purpose, what are we thriving for, and how their individual roles contribute to that. So having this sense of contribution to something much greater, I wouldn't take that lightly, and ultimately it pays off in making sure they've got an emotional connection, an emotional tie to the organization. So I don't think it's one thing, it's probably multiple things. So again, your total compensation, including benefits, it's your employee value proposition, and ultimately it's being able to define the purpose of the organization and how their purpose links to that. These are the three axes we're working on.
We're experiencing that that talent shortage here in Canada, but it's not just in Canada. I mean, there's a global shortage of talent. As you're talking about the value proposition, and we're talking about this this global war for talent, I'm wondering, because we've been forced into this virtual world, and people have, as you say, somebody gets hired and they get their laptop in them, by courier, and they get their, their onboarding is done virtually. What considerations have you given to embracing that way of onboarding someone, so that maybe they don't have to be resident here in Canada or in Montreal, that they can be from the East Coast, they could be from another part of the world? What consideration have you given to attracting talent on a global basis so that they don't have to be here in Canada?
I mean, it's a very good question, and something we are working. I can tell you on a smaller scale, and then I'll get to kind of globally how we're thinking about this. I can tell you one of the benefits from, or one of the learning or positive learning we have from the crisis is this ability. We have an office here in Montreal. We've got also a very important office in Mississauga, and for us, it removed all barriers, right? Everybody overnight was working remotely. There was no more this, I'm based in Montreal, I'm based in Toronto, I'm based in Mississauga. It was, I live in Canada, I work for KDP. It also even allowed us to remove this thinking and this concept of, well, this role needs to be based in Montreal. Well, why? If the talent is elsewhere, if the opportunity to develop someone and that individual lives elsewhere, maybe we don't need to ask them to move, because now we realize the work can be done remotely, and in some cases with great benefits. So I think it created a ton of new opportunities for even our people internally to remove this connection of a role location. Now it's roles and location can be flexible. So I think even on that scale, David, it's been very helpful. And I think now from a global standpoint, let's be honest, we've got some of our coffee experts now that used to be very close to the Montreal facility where we do roast. If they have specific expertise, but they live somewhere in the US or somewhere over in Europe, they're assigned to the business here in Canada. If the talent's there, we're definitely open to that, right? So we're acting globally, we're acting locally, thinking globally, and it goes with the way we manage talent as well.
Well, I know I've been in tasting rooms before, so who knows what technology will bring us virtually. Maybe you'll be able to taste
Yes.
virtually and remotely as well. When we think about the Keurig, so the K cup in particular, in years gone by, Keurig came under some scrutiny with respect to recycling and not being environmentally friendly. So how has Keurig now moved on that situation, so that you've become more part of that circular economy and getting past that stigma of not being environmentally friendly?
It's a great question, and something it's our number one priority, right? To make sure that we leave the world in a better place than where we took it. And that goes with all of our business practices. And I can tell you we're extremely proud. I mean, since 2018, we've converted all of our K-Cup pods to a recyclable plastic number 5 that has great value and is able to be recycled in many municipalities and provinces in Canada. So that's number one. I mean, converting the material to make sure it is material that has great value. We have a team and partners working actively with all the municipalities in Canada to make sure that they can recuperate and take the K-Cup pods and turn it into something of value on their different lines. And you've said it, circular economy is definitely something we're very, very active on. Just so you know, we've partnered with an entity, Laverne, here in Montreal, actually being able to take back this plastic number 5 polypro and turn it into plastic that can be reused. And you'll be happy to hear, I mean, we've converted 1 million pound of plastic that we're now using back in our Keurig systems, in our Keurig brewers. So this is something we're absolutely committed on. We're very active right now with the Blue Bin program that's rolling out in Ontario. We're sitting on the board of circular material. So we're very active on that front to make sure that in a very near future, hopefully all provinces and municipalities, as they do in Quebec and BC, are able to formally accept in the Blue Bin program our K-Cup pods. But I think that's one part, David, of us being responsible in our business practices. The other one is, let's not forget what goes into the K-Cup pods themselves, and it's the coffee, right? And again, we are now, as of this year, every K-Cup pods you'll purchase on the market is 100% responsibly sourced. And I think that is critical to make sure that we support and we make this supply chain all across a viable business to be on. And I think that's very, very important to make sure that we continue to have diversification of sourcing, which provides all the great taste of coffee and taste profile that the consumers are ultimately looking for. So I think it's working at the source, it's working across the supply chain, and it's also continuing to work actively on the material of the K-Cup pods themselves.
Mm-hmm. In our pre-interview conversation, I know we talked about recycling and the great work that Keurig Dr. Pepper is doing with municipalities on the recycling, because actually, you know, a lot of people don't know this, that recycling is a municipality or municipal issue, and if a municipality doesn't accept K-Cups in the recycling program, then there's nothing that you can do about it. But one of the things that I did ask, and I think it was an important point that you help people understand, is the question that I asked you is, how much recycled material do you use in the K-Cups? And I was a little surprised by your answer.
Well, right now, very, very little. And the simple reason is I think we're working very hard with the industry to develop the availability of food grade recycled material, right? So, I mean, that's why I think we need to make sure when we think about circular economy, it's something that needs to be developed. Ultimately, it's the source. So we need to be able to get the plastic out of the market and into recycled facility and turn it into either a non-food or food grade material that can then be reused in your single serve K-Cup pods. And for us, having a large, I would say, majority of municipalities having a stance on being able to recycle our pods, that's why we're focusing so much on our current cup, to make sure that ultimately we work with the industry leaders, technology, we invest in that technology, we're super active on that front. So ultimately we can have something that is totally circular with the pods we put in the market that are being recycled, recuperated, and re-injected into the future pods. And then you close the loop. So pods don't go to waste, which is ultimately the goal that we all have.
When you talk about circular economy, when you talk about recycling and all this research that you're doing into making the K-Cups at least recyclably ready or even biodegradable, how important is that program and that research and development? How important is that to recruiting that next level of talent? Because we know the next generation is extremely concerned about environmental issues.
Well, we talked about purpose, and it's definitely part of our purpose, right? What we do, we want to do for the health and well-being of generations to come. So it is number one. And usually, by the way, we don't need to address it. The questions come from the individuals wanting to join our organization about, hey, you've got these commitments around being environmentally responsible, socially responsible. Tell us more around the programs that you do. So we spend a lot of time talking about all of the efforts and leadership that we're playing on that front, being involved on multiple boards. So not only waiting for the industry to be developed, but really being proactive and spending time, to your point earlier, with the different level of government, with the municipalities, being on boards where provinces are kind of thinking through their overall programs. I was in a recycling facility even last week, right, to understand the new technologies that they have and how it can help our overall case to make sure we get every cup back. So I think that's one. And ultimately, what talents are also asking is, what do you do in your community and being socially responsible, right? So, and we give a few examples, David. I mean, the pandemic gave us a unique chance to get very close to our community. So early on in the pandemic, we helped fuel the front line. So we offered obviously coffee to hospitals. We offered all of our employees to thank and say thank you to one of the frontline worker. That could be working in an ambulance or a police car or hospital again, and gave a great sense of people at least being able to say thank you to someone. And even more recently, we had, I mean, we're established here in Montreal in a neighborhood that wasn't getting the vaccination rate they were expecting, or probably lagging behind in the overall province of Quebec. So with the partnership of Cirque du Soleil and McKesson Canada, we actually created a vaccination clinic where we sent volunteers. We funded the initiative to make sure that we were supporting even folks within our local communities. And I think that you do it because it's the right thing to do, David, but ultimately the employees take great pride in some of these actions that are put forward.
So we have a question from one of your big fan customers. They are big fans of Diet Dr. Pepper, and they love the product. They consume it with vigor, but they've noticed that during the pandemic, there's been a shortage of Diet Dr. Pepper. I'm reading here even it says here that for as a birthday present, her husband found a case of Dr. Pepper and wrapped it up and I guess gave it to her for her birthday. That's how rare it is. What's causing what ingredient, what's causing the shortage of Diet Dr. Pepper? And of course, Debbie's asking, when can I expect some consistency in my supply chain of Diet Dr. Pepper?
Is that Debbie? Debbie asked that?
Debbie Bruce.
Perfect. So I'll make sure to take a personal note. So first of all, it should be on every shelves, and I'll make sure we talk with our distribution partners of Dr. Pepper, which, by the way, have been doing a great job. But I think you've said it throughout the pandemic and still ongoing. There has been a shortage of cans, aluminum cans, and this product lives primarily within this format. And the bottlers, the main bottlers that we partner with, had to make choices in protecting the core assortment and being able to stay in stock on a more limited amount of total, we call it SKU, but brands that they were able to carry and make sure that they kept manufacturing. They reduced their supply chain complexity. We were lucky here in Montreal in our coffee plant to not have any disruption due to COVID, even though we have 500 employees working basically all shifts. So our leadership and our people took it very seriously, but things happen, right, in other manufacturing facilities. So the combination of wanting to reduce your complexity, reduce the assortment, the changeovers and so on, where it's being produced, and the can shortages led to, unfortunately, some of the SKUs to be out of market. But rest assured, we are working really hard right now. Our commercial team is working really hard to make sure it makes its way back on every single shelves. And I know consumers sometimes don't get that perspective, but we're hoping to please them, not only with diet, but a lot of new innovation coming your way with Dr. Pepper next year. So stay tuned.
So stay tuned for more great products out of Keurig Dr. Pepper. Olivier, let's turn our attention to your leadership style. So as we get close to having wrap, I can't believe we're almost through the hour already. when it comes to your leadership style, are you a leader by collaboration, a leader by committee, or a leader by dictatorship?
Well, if you ask me,
Typically
I'll
known,
have an answer. Hopefully,
yeah, typically
hopefully the
known
team
as
has the same.
typically known as what a type A personality. Where would you put your leadership style?
Yeah, a lot more on the collaboration side of the business. Obviously, I'm more about hearing everybody. So if you ask me the attributes of my current leadership style, is probably I tend to lead with empathy, and hopefully that is serving us well. Obviously through the pandemic, having people remotely, but trying to have a feel for how our people are feeling, what they're hearing, what their concerns are, and you never know, or you should never assume you know. So it's this mindset of asking questions and making sure that you have your way in the organization to get the pulse. But growth, I've talked about growth earlier, is probably another attribute. Not only I like to envision the future, push people to think differently, think bold about what we could accomplish. But it's not only on the business; it's about, like we talked about earlier, their development, the development of their team, the ways of working. So I think never setting on status quo is what make businesses move forward. And in some cases, you capture a trend, and in other cases, you know what, you may make mistakes, or you may be too early on certain trends, and you learn. And for me, that's probably the other one, where it's about learning and curiosity. So I like to lead with people, surrounding myself with people that can bring a point of view, that can have a very good debate. So you talked about collaboration. I think ultimately collaboration comes with everybody not having any filter, any fear of voicing their concerns, and putting it on the table. And from that, you build hopefully the optimal scenario. So yeah, it's about growth, it's about trust, it's about empathy, and ultimately vulnerability, especially stepping into that role. There are things I don't know. There are areas I have concerns about, and being able, I think, to in a trusting environment, share this with my reports and my team, only shows that they have things on their minds, I have things on my mind, and I'm reaching out for kind of their support, and I'll be there for them. So I think that's the new way to lead, and hopefully comes as authentic as I would want to be.
Many of the CEOs that I've interviewed over the years have talked about the sacrifices that they made on the journey to the top. I mean, there's you've mentioned you have a family, you've got a spouse and children, and along the way there are those sacrifices that you've had to make. So help us understand what some of the sacrifices that you've had to make along the way.
Well, some of the roles I've occupied in the past, I would say, had a heavy toll of on traveling, right? And in order for me to take on some of these roles, I had to be away from home quite a bit, right? You get on a plane on the Monday morning, and I'm sure a lot of folks here listening are living certain or similar situation. You come back on a Thursday night or Friday afternoon, and you realize you miss out on just the life happening, especially with your family, right? The games and then so on and so forth. But the reality, David, is it was always done in a very strong partnership as a team with my wife. I was thriving. I was learning. There were things I was not there for. I was sharing that, but I knew it was not going to be long term. There was probably a start date and hopefully an end date. But these are some of the sacrifice, because that's the way the roles were designed. So, and I decided to participate, but I don't think I could have done it without a full partnership and being fully in sync and alignment with my wife. And I mean, that's one. The other thing is getting out of your comfort zone, right? This exposes you. This puts you. We talked about vulnerability, but when you've been a sales guy or customer guy all your life, and you step into supply chain and manufacturing, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. So you're going to learn about yourself. You're going to learn to get back up. You're going to learn to surround yourself with people that know better and know more. So I look back, even though some of these experiences were quite difficult personally, I think that's what shaped me and shaped most of the leadership reflex I have today. So the only thing it taught me as well is when I ask someone now to step into some of these assignments, I want us to be very clear on what it may entice, right? And so they know exactly what they walking into. They get the proper support around them to be able to go through it, and not underestimate any of those factors.
Well, you mentioned, traveling can be a challenge. Joanne and I have been together for 27 years, and for a good portion of her career, she traveled 60 to 70% of her time. I think that's why we stayed together so long, Olivier. So I'm not sure that was, too much of a sacrifice. As we wrap up, Olivier, if we look to the future, and the CEOs that are listening, we've talked about pandemic. When we look to the future, what advice do you have for other CEOs as they look to the future, post-pandemic, post-supply chain issues? What do you say to them? What should we be focusing on?
Well, listen, I want to be very hopeful. I think people are looking forward to get out of this pandemic, coming back together and thriving again. I think we're hearing a lot of, we've talked about supply chain, we've talked about labor today, and hopefully we find ways mutually and together to find those paths. I think there's a couple thoughts for me. I think sessions like this morning and groups that we have in different associations are key. Being able to network. I don't think all companies have to do it all themselves. I think partnership is the way to go. Networking is the way to go. So I think it's a question of getting out, forming those alliances, those strategic partnership, and putting our strengths together to solve and help against some of these things. I also think for those that are evolving in the CPG, it's going to be super interesting, right? The consumers are looking for innovation. They're looking for new things. They're more educated than ever. They're more networked and socially connected than ever. And it's going to make our life very interesting, us trying to reach them in the way we reach them, why, and being very true. And I think ultimately the companies that are true to their values and beliefs will win, ultimately, because consumers will be able to see that through, right? In the way you communicate, in the way you take your responsibility. More and more informations are available out there. So you can't cheat. So the ones that are taking the shortcuts eventually may get caught. The ones that are true to their statement, their commitments to what they're doing, and track against those, I think we'll reap a lot of benefit.
Excellent. Olivier, much best wishes for much success in your future, and thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a real treat to do this interview with you. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you, David. It's been a great pleasure.
And with that, I will call on our sponsor from Gallagher Insurance, the great Adam Novak, who is the Senior Vice President with Gallagher. Adam?
Yes, thank you, David. Thank you very much for that introduction. We at Gallagher value a lot of similar values that Olivier just discussed. Olivier, it is a pleasure to hear about your business life and a little bit about your personal life. I really respect your business acumen, and more so the fact that you invest heavily into your staff development. I think that's key to everybody's success these days. And we at Gallagher, we invest a lot of time in seeing that our people have the opportunities to excel and flourish. With over 32,000 employees across the world, we have to find some opportunities throughout that. So Olivier, thank you again. Much appreciated, and I wish you all the best of success.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. And thank you to our sponsors, Amy Delisle from Kaiser Mason Ball, Adam Novak from Gallagher Insurance. A couple of events that are coming up. December 8th is our members' annual general meeting. Guest speaker Mary Scott Greenwood, the CEO of the Canadian American Business Council, will be with us on December the 13th, an in-person event, a luncheon with the Honorable Todd Smith, the Minister of Energy. With that, I want to thank the team in the background. Thanks to Stephanie and thanks to Kelsey Lusk, who always make us sound and look absolutely fantastic. Once again, thanks to you, Olivier, for being with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks to all of you for joining us online, and we hope you have continued success in your business.